All right. Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome. If you guys are new, I'm Dr. Mel. Live your best life doing what you love, and I'm super excited to be with you guys again tonight. I am going live on two platforms. I'm going live on TikTok, and I'm also going live on YouTube. And I know, guys, my YouTube family, I've not been live in a minute, but I apologize. I'm going to try to do better, even if I have to go live in two places or three places at one time. So we're going to get into it, guys. We're going to get into it. Welcome, welcome again. So tonight, our topic is, you guys know I like to make sure that I teach you guys about government contracting. And I've actually been in government contracting now for 33 wonderful years, right? And I live your best life doing what you love. I truly love government contracting, truly love, 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 love it. And I've been teaching it for 15 years. So with that being said, again, I am super excited. Let me move this down a little bit. Super excited to share with you guys my knowledge. I believe, guys, that government contracting is one of those, I don't know, one of those things that has been not talked about enough, right? But it is, in my opinion, the way to grow and scale your business and create generational wealth. That's what I believe. All right, guys. So as we come in the room over in TikTok, we're going to make sure that we do our SOP. And then as you guys come into the room on YouTube, make sure, guys, if you guys are new to the channel, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, right? And then you can make some comments because we're going to be talking about some good stuff. So we're going to jump into it. Tonight, we're going to be talking about from zero to contract ready, mastering the foundation of federal contracting. And so you guys know I teach local, state, and federal, and I engage in local, state, and federal. Oftentimes people ask me, well, Dr. Mel, which one do you like best? I really don't like either best. Wherever I can get the money, that's the one I like best. So if I've got one that's paying me $500,000, I like it. I don't really have a favorite, but many of my students, and I've been, we've been talking about some of these things that I'll go over tonight. Many of my students, they actually like starting in the local or state space. Why? Because oftentimes they find that it's easier for them to win their first contract. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it as we go through our presentation. Like I said, I won't be able to answer a question while I'm going through it, but I will leave some time at the end to be able to answer some questions. All right, so we're going to be here for a while. So go ahead, guys, and grab something to drink and take your shoes off. So we're going to get into it. So I always say that we have to follow the money, right? And hopefully that makes sense. Follow the money. We were not taught to engage in government contracting. A lot of folks, they were taught, right, to start a business, right, to start a business. But that's, to me, is something that's just now being taught, right? Because when I went to school, all right, or when I was growing up, my parents and grandparents, they said, hey, go to school, get a good education so you can get a good job, so you can have this amazing life, right? And so I think that there's beliefs and there's myths that we've been taught that we have to change if we are wanting to create a better life for ourselves and our families. And I know that most people, all people, they just want to be happy. People want to be happy. People want to be able to spend time with their families and their loved ones. They're wanting to travel. They're wanting to not worry about their bills, not stressed out about bills. And so there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. So as I talk to small businesses all the time, right? Again, I mentioned that I am a SCORE mentor, which means that I am, I'm going to say contracted by the SBA, but they don't pay me for free to assist small business owners with various aspects of their business. Like, for example, maybe marketing, government contracting for sure, maybe management, how to build a foundation, business credit, things like that. And so What I find every day is that small businesses, they struggle in the same areas, right? That um, we already know that 50% of all small businesses, right, they earn less than $50,000. We know that. You can Google that. We also know that a small business will fail, right, within the first 3 years. We know that, right? But how do we change that? How do we change the conversation? How do we get better, right? Because we all know that entrepreneurship is the way, right? We know that it's the way. And we also, if you've been hanging out with me for the last couple of days, we also know that success is a system, right? Success is a system. And government contracting is a system as well. We know that when we run into people that are successful, and if they lose it all, and oftentimes, you hear we've got a flash goal over here, guys. So go up to the top of your screen, right? Because I think we only have a few minutes to hit it. We only have 7 minutes to hit that flash goal. So we've got two more folks that need to chime in to help us to hit that goal. But we know that folks that have been successful, many times they lose everything and they're able to build themselves up again. Why? Because it's a system, right? Because it's a system. And so we know again, right? Because the folks are on YouTube, some of this you've missed it. The folks on TikTok, we talked about it for the last couple of days. But we know that in order to be successful, we have to have a strong foundation. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about tonight. And in that same vein, having a strong foundation is very critical to have a strong foundation in government contracting. Why? Thank you. Why? Because once you build your foundation, guys, you're able to what? Just build on it, right? You're able to build on it. We also have talked about in the last couple of days that the first government contract was actually issued in 1775, and it was for military supplies. And it is what? 2025. So that means that the government has been buying goods and services for what? 250 years. So that means that the US government is the largest buyer of goods and services in the entire world. And that's pretty recession proof, right? Because they're going to they're going to outlive us, right? They're going to outlive us. 250 years of government spending. So the government is required to spend 23% of their $700 plus billion with what? With small businesses. So there's like opportunity for us. All right. But what I see is that there's so many myths surrounded by government contracting, like it's too hard, it's for the big boys, I have to have past performance. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it. I want to teach you guys some of the basic terminology so that as you guys decide that you want to enter into this space, that you will have a strong foundation to be able to what? Make a decision, right? Make a decision. All right. So what we didn't learn in business school, I didn't learn it, right? Is how the federal government buys from small businesses. I didn't learn that, right? So 94% of federal purchases, it goes to vendors just like you. So it goes to small businesses just like you. But most people don't know how to enter in the system. And that's what we're talking about. Because once you guys figure out how easy it is, you guys are going to be loving government contracting just like me. All right, so tonight, again, we're going to continue to build on the foundation brick by brick so that you guys can be able to make a really smart command decision. All right, so recapping some of the things that we've talked about this week. So if you missed it, because some folks are here on time and some folks are just, you guys are just coming in. So if you missed it, that's okay. We're going to kind of go over it quickly, but we're going to recap. So we talked about SAM.gov. SAM.gov is where you can find federal contracting opportunities, right? And so SAM, the definition, SAM, when I say SAM, I'm talking about the System of Award Management, right? And that's where you go to register your business with the federal government in order to go after these contracts. We know that in order to go and look at SAM, thank you guys so much for tapping it out. Thank you guys so much for the likes here. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. We know that in order for us to be able to look for contracts, we don't have to be registered in SAM. We can just go to sam.gov and we can look around and search for contracts. But in order for us to bid a contract, we do have to be registered. And in order to get registered, what do you need? Very, very simple, easy peasy, right? You can get registered by getting your UEI. UEI stands for Unique Entity ID, all right? And then you go ahead and you get registered. You identify your NAICS codes. NAICS codes, we talked about it already. NAICS codes help you to what? Identify what you buy and or sell to the government. So it's like the Dewey Decimal System. It lets the government know exactly what you offer, right? So that's easy to do, right? If you have everything, the way I teach my students to get everything that you need and put it on your desktop, right? Or in a Google Drive, right? And because you'll use these things over and over again. So what things will you use over and over again? So you will potentially need your EIN number, the letter from the IRS, right? You'll need your banking account information, your routing number, right? You'll need insurance, your business license, right? So all of these items, right? You want to gather these items, scan them, put them in your Dropbox, Google Drive, or somewhere on your desktop so that you can get it. Because if you're going after government contracts, you're going to need the same documents over and over and over again. So you want to make it easy for you to be able to grab it and submit it, right? You want to make sure, I don't know if I said banking information, so you want to make sure you have your banking information as well. We talked about NAICS codes, NAICS codes, right? What are they? They help the government to know what you buy and sell, right? And so you need to make sure, this is where students, and I'm teaching you about what my students have struggled with so that you guys don't make the same mistakes, right? So they struggle with identifying the right NAICS code, right? They struggle with identifying the right NAICS code. And also, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, but there may be more than one NAICS code for what you do. There may be more than one for what you do. So, there's strategic ways that you can identify all of the NAICS codes that you need. We had a student, Think, Believe, and Achieve. I can't remember his code. He gave it to me. I don't know. I wrote it down. But a NAICS code is a 6-digit code, right? 6-digit number. All right. But you want to make sure. I don't know if he gave me this one. 541611. For example, 541611. If anybody out there is in consulting, that's the NAICS code for consulting. All right. And it will actually allow you to find contracts on SAM that are deemed as consulting contracts, consulting services. All right. We talked about also last night, this week, how do you find opportunities, right? We know that you can just go on SAM, right, and search around for them. I suggest that you do that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we're working smarter versus harder. So if we can shorten the time down from searching for a solicitation, if we can shorten it down and gain 5 minutes, 15 minutes, we want to do that. So we know that we can go to fpds.gov and we can search there. We can spy on our, I'm going to say competitors or other companies, right, in our same industry. We want to be able to see what they are selling, and we want to see what agencies awarded what type of contract. I think last night we talked about the bottled water. So we said we don't have to guess to see if the government, right, Georgia, an entity in Georgia, if they're going to buy water again this year. We can go and we can see, yeah, they spent $200,000 on water. And so if we supply water, easy win, right? We don't have to guess it out, figure it out. We know that that same agency is going to buy water again this year. So that's like, okay, now we can we can reach out to the agency, to the contracting officer, CO, or business specialist to say, hey, my name is, and I saw that you purchased, 20,000 cases of water last year. And I just want to let you know, introduce myself to you, and let you know this is what we do as well, right? And you want to know if there's any opportunities that's going to be coming up. That contracting officer and or that business specialist will know if there's opportunities coming up. Welcome everybody. Why? Because they have to come up with a budget every year in order to be able to sell or get rid of that money before the year is out. So right now, we talked about this. Right now is an amazing time for you to be engaged in government contracting, right? Because contracting officers are dumping money. They're dumping money. They're getting rid of it, right? Because if they don't spend it, they lose it. All right. So we want to be able to have ourselves already positioned so that we don't have to get ready because we're already ready. All right. So let's see. So we talked about fpds.gov. I have to say that very slow because when I say it fast, it just comes out all wrong. All right. And we talked about SAM. Let's see. So we talked about also the middleman strategy, right? Which is the teaming and or subcontracting, right? We talked about what a prime is versus what a subcontractor is, right? We talked about what an RFP is versus an RFQ. All right, so we'll go over those really quickly, right? So if you're thinking about engaging in government contracting, a lot of people be like, oh, I've got to have all of the experience. I have to be the expert. And I submit to you that you don't have to be the expert. You just need to be able to be savvy enough to be able to find the expert, right? And so you may decide that you want to, let's see, you want to cater. Let's say you're into catering. That is your niche, but you want to cater. And let's just say you live in Arkansas, but you want to cater and you find a contract at Fort Braggs, because I don't know if you guys know anything about the military. We love having ceremonies, right? We love taking care of our soldiers, right? And so you find a contracting opportunity on sam.gov at Fort Braggs, right? And what they want to do is and let's just say it's for the Army, and they've done some training and they're bringing their soldiers back in, and they're inviting the families out to this ceremony, and they need 1,500 meals catered. You know how to do it if you were in Arkansas, but this particular solicitation is in Fort Braggs, right? And so you're like, oh, okay, I can't do it. Think again, you can. So what you would have to do is you just have to identify a subcontractor in that city or close to that city or close to that base that will be able to do it for you. That's considered the middleman or subcontracting scenario, right? Thank you so much. So how do you do that? I can't get into how you do it exactly, but I need you guys to understand the overall thought process, right, of how you do it. That, of course, I teach you in my programs. That, of course, I have templates and all of that in my program. All right, but that teaches you how to do the middleman. You don't have to be where the contracting opportunity is. You can subcontract it out. Understanding that, you know that the government is going to pay you because you're the prime. Prime is you're the principal contractor for that contract. So the government, they contracted with you, the prime. And then what you did is you found individuals, right, that could do the work. right? You found individuals that could do the work for you on your behalf. So the government is going to pay you the prime, and then you're going to be responsible for paying your subcontractors. We talked about typically the government pays net 30. You can also get a net 15. Sometimes you just have to ask, but in most cases, if you are a disabled or a disadvantaged business entity, like a woman-owned small business, a service disabled small business, a veteran, a hub zone, and there's a couple others. If you are a disadvantaged small business, you can get paid within 15 days. Remind me, something just came out and I want to talk to you guys about it. It's hot, and it's crazy. So remind me to talk to you guys about that. Um, so, so we talked about what's the difference between an RFP and an RFQ, right? So hopefully you guys are taking notes. So someone said that my home office is in a hub zone. That is so fabulous. That is so fabulous. So with that being said, if your home is located, so let's just talk about that just for a second, right? I don't want to get too deep into it. Maybe we'll talk about set asides tomorrow. But your home, hopefully that's your business home address as well. It has to be your business address. So a lot of us use our home as our home office. We'll talk about that too, because there's strategies for making sure that you show up properly for the contracting officer, right? That's going to look for you and research you and check you out. So with that being said, your business, let's say your business is in a hub zone, right? How do you determine if your business is in a hub zone? You go to Google, you go and you search for hub zone, and then it'll say, okay, what is the business address? You put your business address in, right? And it'll say, yes, it's in a hub zone, or no, it doesn't qualify for a hub zone. Hub zone is just a historic, underdeveloped area of the city, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's the hood, but it's the underserved, underdeveloped area of the city. So so with the hub zone, just because your business is there, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are eligible for a hub zone, because you also have to have employees that are in the hub zone. So I think it's like 30%. Don't mark me on that, but I think it's 30% of your employees have to also live in the hub zone. So anyway, so that's really, really good, because one of the things that I always do when I'm trying to determine where I'm going to put my office, I always look for a hub zone. Why? Because that's checking off some boxes for me, right? That's checking off some boxes for me. Woman owned, hub zone, service disabled, veteran owned, right? So it's checking off some boxes for me. And then when um, teaming partners are looking for someone, they may need someone that's in a hub zone. And so they'll be like, oh, Doc is in a hub zone, so I could use her for this, right? And then also, before I go astray, oftentimes contracting officers, because they have set aside requirements, sometimes they will look for one company that has the ability to kill two or three birds with one stone. So, for example, me or you could be able to help the contracting officer out by serving as a service disabled veteran, a woman owned, a hub zone, right? Or an 8A. It doesn't matter, right? And there's a couple of more, right? But those are the top ones. So anyway, that's where we were going with that. So what we want to make sure is that when we're setting ourselves up in SAM, that we set ourselves up correctly, so that when contracting officers are looking for us, that they can find us. We want to make sure that we set ourselves up correctly when teaming partners or prime contractors, right? The big boys are looking for us, that they can find us. Keep in mind, the reason I love government contracting is because the government is the largest buyer of goods and services in the entire world. So whatever you do, right? Whatever you sell, The government is looking for you. And oftentimes, this is what's so funny and so crazy to me is oftentimes there's contracts, guys, that maybe only one or two people bid it on. And that is crazy. And there's a way that you can find out on a particular opportunity, like how many people bidded on that contract. And it will really, really, really surprise you. Also, there's contracts that 100,000 people bid on. You know, like they may have 100 people that bidded on this one contract, right? And contracting officers, right? They are looking for new meat, right? They're looking for new small businesses. They don't like giving a contract to the same business over and over again. But oftentimes they do that because what? You were not bidding, right? And so they don't have a choice, right? So, and that's another thing that I teach is how do you what reverse engineer and find the contracts, right? That are not being bidded by but one or two. There's a way. All right. But anyway, we talked about teaming agreements versus joint ventures. I think we may have talked about that on Monday. I think so. All right. I think we talked about that on Monday. All right. We talked about your capability statement. And let's just talk about your capability statement for just a second. A lot of folks, when they enter into government contracting, they're thinking that they have to have past performance, meaning that they have to already have had won a contract, right, in order to build a capability statement. And I do have a template in my store where you guys can just copy and paste your stuff and stick it in there, right? Because we know a capability statement should be at least one page, no more than two, right? Because again, contracting officers are what? They're just wanting to scan your information quick. They're not wanting to look for page and page and page. They're wanting to scan your information to see if you are a fit. Can you provide them with what they're looking for? So, a capability statement is just like your business resume. It introduces yourself to the contracting officer, right? And or you can also use your capability statement to introduce yourself to a prime contractor, right? So a capability statement, all right? So we talked about you don't necessarily need to have past performance in order to build a capability statement. What you do need to have is, I guess, creativity to be able to know that if you worked in corporate America, let's just say you worked in corporate America. I see my son, he works in HR. He does payroll. Let's just say this, you've done that for the last 15 years, and then you decide either you may still be in corporate America, right? But you decide that you want to get your feet wet and you want to start doing some government contracting. And so what you do is you've got experience because you've been doing it for 15 years, right? And even if you're new, some of my students, they just left college, right? They finished their master's degree and they had to do a thesis or something. They can use that experience. You can also use volunteer work to build your past performance. You just need to make sure that it's accurate, right? And it speaks to what the contracting officers are looking for. So you have to speak to the contracting officers' pain points, right? You want to make their life easy. All right. So how do you do that? You make sure that you write your capability statement and your past performance in a way that you're showing them that, hey, I can help you solve your problem, right? I can help you solve your problem. All right. So in creating your capability statement, right, you want to make sure that you go into DSBS, all right, which stands for DSBS, which stands for the Dynamic Small Business Search. All right. And you want to make sure that that is uploaded and that it is accurate there. So many people, and we could, if I could, maybe we'll do this another night. Well, for laughs and giggles, we'll go into DSBS and we'll look at some profiles and we'll see how raggedy they are, right? If somebody was really, really trying to win a government contract, if they have a blank resume, right? If you were going after a job and you handed over to the hiring manager your resume and it was blank, do you think they'll hire you? Probably not, right? So the same thing is true with government contracting. You have to make sure that your resume, your capability statement, your business resume is full, complete, and it's written in a way that can be picked up by the AI app that they use, they being the contracting officers, use to what scan your information. We use AI, contracting officers use AI as well. Everybody's trying to work smarter versus harder. All right, so there's a way also that you guys can go into DSBS and clean up your profile to make sure that it's showing up the way it should show up in sam.gov. You want to make sure you do this right, again, because primes are looking for you, right? And contracting officers and business specialists are looking for you as well. All right, so I don't think we talked about simplified acquisition threshold. All right, so these are contracts. So if you of simplified acquisition, these are contracts, guys, under $250,000. Under $250,000. Keeping in line with that, we have talked about micro purchases. Those are contracts, guys, under $10,000. And we talked about that with the micro purchase, easy, low hanging fruit, that the purchasing officer has a P card, right? A P card, right? That they are able to use to purchase products and services that are $10,000 and under, right? So there's no big bidding. People are really loving that. We're talking and teaching about that a lot because people are like, oh, I didn't know. Oh, yeah, well, you can go win a whole bunch of stuff. We talked about, I've got a student and all she does is sells tissue, right? That's her thing, right? She's like, everybody needs tissue. And that is true. All right. So with simplified acquisition, right, we know that if we're a small business, we can get and we can win one of those quicker, right? Because the big boys probably are not bidding on those as much. They're probably bidding on contracts that are over $500,000 or $1 million or 100 million, 50 million, something big, right? So with the simplified acquisition, right, to under $250,000, those are easy win. We've been talking about direct awards. So all of this is just terminologies that we're helping, that's going to help you guys to build a foundation. So when you're in a room and you're talking to a contracting officer, all of this is going to make sense. What I'm going to do is I am going to continue to do, we've got some goals. We're hitting some goals. Good. Good. We're hitting some goals. All right, guys, keep tapping it out. Guys, keep liking it, right? I don't see any comments just yet, but if you guys have comments, go ahead and put them in the chat so that when we finish, we can cover and we can answer them, because I want to make sure that you guys understand exactly how powerful government contracting is. All right, so we've been talking about direct awards. A lot of folks, they shy away, and I don't know why they do, but they shy away from writing a proposal, right? Proposals are easy these days because you have ChatGPT, right? But they shy away and they're looking for direct awards. Direct awards is like a sole source. That's a new word that we've not talked about. Sole source is that I'm going to I'm gonna source that contract out to you. All right, I'm gonna give it just to you. I have one person that I'm gonna give that contract to. Those are direct awards, right? So those are also easy. Many folks use this if they're an 8A company, a woman-owned small business, a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, and they are up to $4 million, depending on the agency. So we love, right, direct awards or sole source, all right? I don't know if we've talked about this, but this is another definition that I want you guys to be familiar with. pre-solicitation. All right. I want you guys to understand there's a difference between a pre-solicitation, a sole source, request for proposal, and a request for a quote. Right. Though all of those are different. Right. I love um, pre-solicitations. So it's not a solicitation, it's a pre-solicitation. So the government, the contracting officer is saying, I've got something, and um, I've got a contract that's coming out, and I kind of want to see how many people is going to respond to it. Right. And so they'll do a pre-solicitation. So it's the briefing before the actual solicitation, right? Pre-solicitation. Um, there's another one that I can't think of right now, but it'll come to me. We know, of course, that an RFP requires us, on most cases, to write like a thesis. The government is wanting you to tell them, how are you going to approach this project? What's your methodology? What's your timeline? What's your team? They want to know price, right? But more importantly, right, they're wanting to know your strategic strategy. All right. And so that's the difference between an RFQ. So an RFQ, request for quote, the government is saying, okay, I've got, I need 100 computers for an event that I'm having. And I want to see, I'm going to give you the specs, and I want to see how much you're going to charge me for these 100 HP computers, right? Oftentimes, when we're looking at requests for quotes, all right, not all the time, but they're wanting the cheapest price, all right. So a little different from requests for proposals, because they're not always looking for the cheapest price on a proposal. They're looking for the person that has the best methodology, that has the best certification, that has the best team, right? And the best approach to what? Completing that contract. All right. So hopefully all of this is making sense. Hopefully everybody's tracking. If you guys are tracking, if this is making sense, just guys put a thumbs up in the chat. The folks on YouTube, if this is making sense, guys, just kind of give me a thumbs up or a shout out or something so that I can know. A thumbs up on YouTube would be great. All right, good. You guys are tapping it out. We're still tapping. All right, you guys stop tapping. Go ahead, guys. Share it out. Share it out to your top friends, bottom friends, and your middle friends. All right, cool. 1 second. Okay. All right. Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is pricing. Oftentimes, and I think we talked about it just a little bit last night. Oftentimes people will be like, well, how do I price my quote? Or how do I price my RFP? You want to make sure you make a profit. That's why we're doing this. Because instead of chasing after one client at a time, we're going to sell to the largest buyer of goods and services in the entire world, right? That's what we're going to do. So we want to make sure, if we're going after a government contract, we're not trying to be the cheapest person, in the room. And that might mean that we lose that contract, that we don't get it, because the goal is to make money. The goal is to what? Win a couple, one or two, couple $1 million, put some money back in a high yield savings account and live off the interest, right? So, or buy some investment property or cryptocurrency or something like that. So the goal is for us to make money, right? So you don't want to you never want to be the lowest bidder, unless you're bidding it to win because you've never done work with that agency before. And if you are bidding it to win, then there's, that strategy is a different strategy all in itself. But there is no set rule on how you need to price your proposal and or your quote, right? You just want to make sure, again, you make a profit. So you can go, I think we talked about the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulatory Act, right? And that's, and I hope I said it right, but the FAR. The FAR is that, oh my God, book that governs how we engage in government contracting. So it tells the contracting officer what they can do, and it tells the Federal Acquisition Regulation. Yeah, my brain is all messed up. But it tells the contracting officer what they can do, and it tells us what we can do. So it keeps everybody what? Doing the right thing. But we can go to the FAR, Part 31, right? And we can find information on the markup labor, overhead, and the profit, right? So that we can kind of get an idea on how much we should mark our quote up or our proposal up. And then we can also look at the General Service Administration, or the GSA. That's another terminology that we've not talked about before. We can look at the GSA. And the GSA, they recommend that we mark it up 10 to 20%, depending on the risk. All right, depending on the risk. Perfect. Thank you so much, Station Check Tech, for putting that information in the chat, because guys, I'm not able to look over and answer. All right, so we talked about the FAR. The FAR is that book or that regulation that governs what we do, how we do it, keeps everybody understanding that, hey, that's not in the FAR. You can't do it that way. So it keeps everybody honest, right? And so most people don't read the FAR, but there's different parts of it that they go to oftentimes if they get confused, right? So if you want to know, how many days the government has in order to pay you, you can go to the FAR. If you want to understand, if you believe that the contracting officer should have awarded it to you and they awarded it to somebody else, you may want to file some type of I don't know. I can't think of the word. You may want to file a claim. That's not the word I'm looking for. To say, hey, I don't think this was fair, right? So let's look at it again. I want us to look at it. So you can find that in the FAR. Let's talk about change orders. And then I want to talk about something that hit the news for just a second. So a change order, guys, is when there's a change in the contract. So just say that you have a contract and the contract was, I don't know, let's go for a small one, $580,000. That's a small government contract. So $580,000, but you get into the contract, you start working. Well, let's just say it's a construction contract, right? Easy peasy construction contract. You're building or renovating. Let's say you're renovating, you're rehabbing. Yeah, that's going to be nice. That's going to flow nicely into what I want to talk to you guys. So let's just say you're rehabbing a building. And then when you get into the building, you find out that they didn't want you to replace the HVAC. When you get in there, you find out that the HVAC system is so old, it doesn't work. And so they say, you're almost finished. And they say, the HVAC system is not working. And you're like, well, that wasn't a part of my scope. I don't know if we talked about the scope, SCOPE, scope. That wasn't a part of my scope, my requirements, my homework, right? That wasn't a part of what you told me I had to do. That's not what I signed up for, right? Thank you guys for tapping it out. Thank you. That's not what I signed up for. So, the contracting officer, well, we can't have a rehab building and the HVAC system is not working. So while you're in there, can you guys do the HVAC? Yes, we can. All right. So, all right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to create a change order because I want you guys to do the HVAC. All right. So basically they're modifying, a change order modifies the contract from its original state. All right, guys. Never, ever do work without having a change order. Never, ever. Contracting officer might come to you and say, hey, Merritt, I want you to go ahead and do the HVAC, put that new system in and make sure that it has sensors and all of that. I want the state-of-the-art HVAC system where we can read and adjust the temperature from the building, from headquarters. Go ahead and do it. And what I'll do is I'll do a change order later. I'll get to it and I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you tomorrow. And you be like, and you go ahead and do it. Never, never touch it until you have this change order, until it's been signed and approved by all the parties, guys. So that's one of the crazy things that many of my contractors, they get into. They start working on stuff and they don't get paid for it, right? It wasn't a part of the original scope and they didn't get approval because the contracting officer is just like, yeah, we want to do it. You can do it. Yeah. Guys, if you are on TikTok, make sure you guys are going in and grabbing your daily heartbeat. All right. Because I can see that you guys are not doing that. All right. Make sure you guys are doing that. Okay. So you don't want to ever do any work before you get it in writing. And that's a change order. That's a modification to the original scope, to the original proposal, to your original contract, right? So we don't ever want to do that. All right. Okay. So the next thing that I want to talk about is I'm just going to kind of try to summarize it. A couple of things that's happened today. And I'm always looking for stuff that happens. And when it happens, I want to know, how does it relate to government contracting? So something hit the news, guys, and you guys can probably Google it because I'm just going to paraphrase it the best that I can. There was, let me see if I can Google it and get it up. There was some news today about Powell, right? There's some renovation going on with one of the buildings, and Chairman Powell, right, the one that adjusts the interest rates, right, he actually has been reported of spending, I want to think it was 24, I want to get it right. So give me a second. Oh gosh. I think it was 24. I'm going to say 24. It was billion. I want to think $1 billion, right? On this rehab, right? On this rehab. And so it's out. And that's why I'm telling you guys, there's so much opportunity for government contracting because all of this money, and I don't have the number in front of me. All of this, let me see. All of this money was spent on a rehab, right? And now our president is $2.5 billion. That's what it was. $2.5 billion was spent on renovating this building, and now the president is saying you grossly overspent. You got some elevators, you got some waterfalls, you got all of these upgrades right in this building, and so now they're investigating to say that there is waste, abuse, and fraud, and all of that stuff going on. So, guys, if you guys don't believe 2.5, I think I said $2.5 billion on a rehab, on a renovation of a building. Keep in mind, it hadn't been renovated for, I don't know how many years, a lot of years. Let's just say 50 years, right? 50 years. But now some small businesses, right, won this contract, right? And the entire contract is $2.5 billion. So if you guys don't think that that's black budget money, it's some kind of money, guys. It's some kind of money. So if you guys don't think there's opportunity, so if they're rehabbing or renovating a building, all kinds of folks can get paid, right? And remember that 23% of that $2.5 billion goes to small businesses, right? Not just the big boys. So the interesting thing about that, guys, is that I actually tried to kind of see who won the contract. I was able to get some names, right, of companies that won it, but some names of folks that won it, I couldn't figure it out. I would have to dig a little bit because we know We talked about the Freedom of Information Act. We talked about every contract that's awarded, right? FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, that we can find out who won it. We can see um, a lot of the information that they may have submitted in order to win it, right? And so this information is not as accessible as I wanted to be, because I wanted to share it with you guys. So that's that. So another thing that happened, right, that I wanted to talk to you guys about is there's a stable coin that is now going before the president to get signed. And so what is a stable coin, right? What is a stable coin? So a stable coin is a cryptocurrency, and basically it's a coin that's stable, right? It's stable. So the whole premise behind the coin, as I understand it, is that if it's backed by the dollar, right, or an asset, the dollar or an asset, we're going to just say the dollar. I'm going to say the dollar, but backed by the dollar or an asset, right, and that it's supposed to keep its value. It's supposed to stay stable, right? It's supposed to keep its value. And so, what does that mean, guys? All I care about is what that means for us in government contracting. And so, what that means for us in government contracting is, you guys already know, we get paid, all right, typically on a net 30. Sometimes we can get paid earlier, all right, but typically we get paid on a net 30. But with this stable coin, guys, government contractors will now have the potential to potentially get paid within minutes. So imagine going from getting paid in 30 days to getting paid in 30 minutes. Guys, if you're not looking into government contracting, guys, I do not know what's going on, because clearly government contracting is one of the coolest ways for you to grow and scale your business, all right, and also to create generational wealth, because you're not chasing behind clients, all right. You can win. We talked about multi-year contracts. We talked about winning a contract that may be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and we talked about how we can just reverse engineer and find if the contract is a rebidded contract, right? We can find out. And if we know that it's up for rebid, you'll always hear contractors say, I think that project is up for rebid next year, right? And so that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity. And so we just have to be positioned. That's the only thing, guys. It's not the fact that you guys that you don't have the experience, that you're not qualified, right? You're just not probably positioned to win a government contract. All right, so just a whole bunch of stuff is coming in, guys. So they're talking about Social Security's being cut. So I can't read it, but normally I try to pay attention to the news, because when I'm listening for the news, I'm listening, more importantly, how does it affect me and what I do? So a lot of stuff is just coming in, and I'm like trying to flip it up so that I can continue with our live tonight. But we want to always understand how laws affect us and our business. We understand, tap it up, tap it up, tap it up. We're headed for 30K. We want to understand that, or you do understand that the tax system is set up for small businesses. So if you're not in business, right? If you're an entrepreneur, if you are not an entrepreneur, if you are an employee, right? You need to consider, I think everybody should have some type of business, right? You need to have that LLC, right? Tap it up, tap it up. I think the only person that's tapping is Single Chef. Everybody left the room except Single Chef. All right. But you want to have a small business because there's write-offs, there's benefits, right? And so with that being said, we talked about, can you engage in government contracting if you don't have a business? Yeah, you could, but no, you shouldn't. All right. You could be a sole proprietor, but you probably want to have an LLC or an S corp. Keep it in mind, I am not a tax professional, so I'm not giving you any type of financial or tax advice, right? So you want to make sure that you consult with your financial advisor to see what is the best financial setup for you and your business and your family. All right. So, guys, as we're coming to an end, all right, we really did really well, really well tonight because we covered a lot of information. We covered a lot of information. So, I don't know if you guys are excited about the stable coin. I'm excited because what it means, like if I can get my money faster than 30 days, how cool is that? Right. And potentially because of the cryptocurrency, because of the security of it, right? We can get paid quicker. And who, wouldn't be happy to be able to do a contract and after you finish it and get all of your paperwork is approved, you get your money. Like, how cool would that be? All right, so recapping, guys, we went over a lot of information, and basically what we're doing is we're building the foundation. We're building the foundation, and we're talking about GovCon secret files, right? It's a secret. They don't want you to know that you can win a contract, right? A micro purchase contract for what? $10,000 or under, and you don't even have to bid on it, right? You can win a direct award, right? You can win a simplified acquisition, right? That's under $250,000, right? So you can win contracts, what? By just getting position and what? Making sure that all of your paperwork is correct. All right. So hello. So as we're coming to a close, you guys have any questions that I can answer before we come back? Guys, remember, if any of the information that I provided tonight was helpful, make sure you guys go ahead and give it a thumbs up. As we're going to, we gotta work harder over here. So I might have to end over here, all right, in YouTube and come back over here with you guys because we got a little ways to go. We got to at least get to 30K. But if there's any questions that you guys have, I can try to answer them at this time. All right. So I'm going to open up the room for questions in our YouTube community, and then also in our TikTok community. You guys have any questions as we come to an end? All right. So that means that I did a good job, that we're building that foundation. And guys, don't think it's difficult because some of the terminologies you've never heard before, but it's okay, right? Because if you use it a couple of times, you'll get familiar with it, right? You'll get familiar with it. And I talk about it enough each night so you're not confused. And each night I'm bringing in new terms that you guys need to learn, right, in order to be able to have a strong or a general, I'm going to say a general foundation, right? A general foundation so that you can start bidding. All right. And it doesn't matter, guys, it doesn't matter if you don't have it all figured out, right? We did a challenge about a month and a half ago. It was the Start Messy Challenge. And basically I said to my team, I want each and every one of you guys to bid on a contract within the 30 days, right? Doesn't matter if it's perfect, right? Doesn't matter if it's perfect, but I need you to go through the exercise of researching, finding a bid that's right for you, right? And not one that you want, one that's right for you, right? That speaks to your strengths and your experience, and go ahead and go through the motions of submitting your bid or your quote or your proposal. And we did that. Everybody that's on my team, they did it. Otherwise, they were kicked off the team, right? Because it's not that we have to be perfect when we're engaging in any new endeavor, right? But the goal is to get to mastery. The goal is to get to mastery, where you can do it with your eyes closed. You see a solicitation, you were like, okay, bet, that's my NICS code. What do I need to do? I know that, hey, I'm gonna if I'm gonna be participating in the middleman, I'm gonna have to find some folks that can do the work for me. You know, if I'm writing a proposal, I'm going to have to find the folks that what may have what I don't have, right? They may have experience, they may have a secret clearance, they may have some certain training or certifications, whatever it is, right? We know how to do that. And after you do it one or two times, guys, success is a system. Government contracting is a system, right? You do it once, right? You may not win. People ask me, well, oh, Doc, how long does it take me to win my first contract? It depends. There is no rule. There is no set number, right? I would say approximately 15 to 20% of my folks, they win their first couple of contracts, while the other 80%, they may have to bid on 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 mini contracts in order to win. But what I will tell you guys, if you keep on, all right, if you keep on, I remember Kobe Bryant, he used to take a jump shot every day. Every day. I think he used to take like 100 shots, right? Every day, because his goal was to master the art of basketball, master the jump shot, so that when he did it, he could do it in his sleep. If he was tired in a game, he could do it because it was the same flip, right? Flip, right? So, same thing holds true to government contracting, guys. You can master it, but you have to what? Go ahead and you have to what? Submit your proposal, submit a bid, right? Then after you do, then you can what? You can go back to the contracting officer. Can you say, hey, I submitted my proposal. Can I have a meeting with you and have an AAR, an after action review, right? So you want to do that every time you submit a contract or proposal. You want to meet with the contracting officer to find out what did you do well, what should you have done, and because they are wanting to make sure that they build a relationship with you, right? Because their whole goal is to make sure that they spend the money that's allocated in their budget and get it done properly and successfully, right? So that, thank you so much, so that they can go on to the next project. So they want you to say, hey, what did I do, wrong, or what could I have done better, right? And then they'll probably look at the person who won, and then they'll look at yours, and they'll say, hey, well, it would have been good if you had this experience. It would have been great if you had this certification, right? And so that helps you. It helps you to what? Realize that maybe I need to find some teaming partners, right? Maybe I need to form a joint venture. And we talked about a joint venture, right? The joint venture is maybe one or two or three or more companies that come together to go after a contract, and they actually form a company, right? Versus just teaming like I'm going to get you to team with me. You're going to be my sub. You're actually going to do the work. I'm going to be the prime. So when we have these after action reviews, after we submit our proposal and maybe we lose, it helps us to get better. Then we can clean it up, right? We can clean it up. We also want to make sure that when we're submitting our responses, right, is that we're submitting responses and we're making sure that we're not just talking about us. Contracting officers don't want to know about you. They want to know, how are you going to be able to make their life easy by executing the contract. And what I know is easy to win a contract. Write this down. It's easy to win a contract. It's easy peasy. But what is most difficult or more difficult is the execution of the contract, right? Especially if you are relying on somebody else to do it. So you have to have systems and processes in place in order to make sure that your execution of the contract goes according to plan. And we understand we have to have a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Why? Because things that you don't think is going to go wrong is going to go wrong. And as a project manager, I already know something is going to go wrong. All right. And with that being said, when you're bidding, Oftentimes, my new bidders or contractors, they don't put enough cushion in for contingency. You want to have a cushion for your contingency, right? What if you're bidding on something and you thought that the cost was going to be, I don't know, $50,000, and something happens in the world, right? Like a tariff or something, right? And now it's more difficult for you to get that same product or tool or whatever it is, right, for that amount. But you bidded it so tight and you left no margin in for error that you're praying, oh my God, let me finish this contract, because you didn't bid it right and you didn't leave enough room for contingency, right? For something that could go wrong. All right. You always got a plan for something that could go wrong. All right. So any questions? All right, sisters, do you want more people to see your whoever it is? Yes, I always want more people to see this information. Why? Because of course, this is Dr. Mel, Live Your Best Life, doing what you love. I love government contracting. And I think there's opportunity for small businesses to grow and scale their business with government contracting. All right. And I always forget to tell you guys about my book, The Trillion Dollar Client. The Trillion Dollar Client, guys, you guys can grab it. It's on my site. It's probably somewhere in the link somewhere here on YouTube, but you can grab it. It tells you my journey into this space and why I love it. All right, so it's a $1 trillion client. So guys, if you don't have a copy, go ahead and grab it today. If you guys have any questions, all right, no more questions. All right, this has been fun. This is always fun. This is always fun. So guys, if you found value in this content that we've discussed tonight, guys, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and consider subscribing. And guys, we will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that we can continue to build a strong foundation so you guys can go out there and crush it. When you guys start bidding on contracts, you're just going to crush it. You're going to win, win, win. All right, guys. With that being said, this is your girl, Dr. Melissa J. Williams. Live your best life doing what you love, guys. I truly, truly love government contracting. So stay healthy, happy, and God bless. I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.